My name is Meredith Finley, and I'm 34 years old. 3 months ago, I stood outside the rented lake house in Miami during our family's Thanksgiving party, while 200 guests laughed and carved turkey inside because my sister decided I wasn't successful enough to cross the threshold. The small envelope I handed off to the security guard that night would cost her something she'd chased for years and force our family to rethink success entirely. The lake breeze carried the scent of stuffing and cranberry that evening as I approached the entrance. Lights twinkling over the deck. I tugged at my sweater. Sure, it blended with a holiday crowd, but arrivals in pressed shirts and skirts traded whispers about funding rounds and boardroom wins, marking Rochelle's World Shane startup network, the types who shaped deals from poolside chats. At the gate, the guard gripped his tablet, the party's hum pressing close. Name he barked. Eyes on the screen. Meredith Finley, the host's sister. He scrolled, paused, scrolled again. Nothing. Step aside. My confirmation pinged on my phone, but he dismissed it. Lists locked. No fixes. The line swelled, tension building. I called Rochelle, the ring cutting through distant toasts. She answered amid clinks and murmurs, her explanation dropping like ice. The omission was deliberate. She made clear my freelance finance work would clash with Shane's backers and execs, the steady climbers she courted. 8 years advising clients didn't count as real traction in her view. It came off as unsteady. A shadow to her corporate strides. This gathering built their future. And someone patching gigs couldn't blend in. Her dismissal sliced quick. The guard's gaze steady as he moved in. No room for outsiders, he said, arm extending to nudge me back to the lot. The contact brief, but pointed. I fished out the envelope. Pulse. Even. Pass this to Rochelle. It's hers. He pocketed it, waving the next guest through, as I retreated. The deck's warmth faded. Chatter a distant wave. That envelope carried a glimpse she'd never imagined. A shift waiting to hit. What unfolded next upended it all. Before I break down that unraveling and the frenzy that followed. If you've ever been shut out of your family's spotlight for falling short, smash like and subscribe. Drop in the comments. Where are you tuning in from? And what's the time on your end? The drive to the lake house felt heavier than expected that evening. Miami's humid air clung to the windows as I pulled up to the rented spot on the water's edge. Lights strung along the deck casting a warm glow over the gathering. I stepped out, adjusting my sweater against the breeze off the lake, figuring it suited a family Thanksgiving. But the parking lot filled with sleek cars, and guests streamed in wearing crisp shirts and heels, their talk of market shifts and deal closings drifting like smoke. This wasn't just relatives anymore. It was Rochelle's orbit, a mix of Shane's startup crowd and venture folks whose handshakes moved money. At the entrance, a security guard blocked the path, tablet glowing under the string lights. He asked for my name, scanning the screen with a practiced flick. Meredith Finley, I said, mentioning my tie to the host. He double-checked, fingers pausing as the list refused to yield. No match. He suggested a misspelling or +1 error. But my phone confirmation from last month stared back at me, clear as the lake's reflection. The line behind me grew, impatience rippling through. He radioed the coordinator inside, but the response came back negative. List final, no changes. As I pressed. He shifted his stance, the air thickening with the scent of roasting turkey wafting out. I dialed Rochelle, the phone pressing cold against my ear amid the distant clink of glasses and low laughter. She answered quickly, her voice layered with the party's hum. The moment I explained the list issue, her tone dropped, turning clinical. She admitted the omission on purpose, laying out how my presence would clash with Shane's key backers and board members, people sealing rounds worth millions, freelance finance advising, she implied. came off as unsteady. The kind of patchwork effort that undercut their polished image. 8 years in the game didn't register, it was all scraps in her eyes. A mismatch for the high-stakes crowd she courted. This night centered on their trajectory. And a sister scraping by month to month simply didn't fit the frame. Her words landed sharp, each one carving deeper into the quiet resolve I'd built over those years. The guard watched, his expression neutral but firm, as if he'd heard family edges fray before. I ended the call, the screen dimming in my palm. No room for outsiders, he stated plainly, his hand guiding my arm back toward the gravel lot with steady pressure, the push firm enough to leave no debate. I paused at my car, the envelope from my purse feeling heavier now. Hand it to Rochelle. I told him it's meant for her. He nodded, tucking it under his arm before returning to his post. The party's energy pulsed on, doors swinging open to reveal tables laden with carved turkey, steaming stuffing, and cranberry relishes, pies cooling on sideboards. Guests mingled freely, plates in hand, while I lingered in the shadows of the drive. The gravel shifted under my feet as I walked back to the car, engine humming to life with a reluctant turn. Miami streets unfolded ahead, palm fronds rustling in the night wind, traffic lights blurring into streaks. Her dismissal echoed not just the exclusion, but the casual rewrite of my work as some interim fix, unworthy beside her corporate ascents. Freelance had let me advise on real portfolios, guide clients through market dips and gains. But to her, it stayed the lesser lane. I veered toward a quiet diner off the main drag. Neon sign flickering against the dashboard. The booth welcomed me with vinyl seats and a laminated menu, the waitress pouring coffee without fanfare. Steam rose as I stirred in nothing, the bitter warmth steadying the churn inside. My phone lay silent on the table, but the quiet felt temporary. The party's orbit still pulling. Cousin Shauna texted first, asking my absence amid the full spread. Not on the list, I typed back. Her reply flashed confusion, calling it absurd. Vivian followed, wondering about the empty seat. Rochelle handled the invite, I responded, the words landing flat even on screen. Dots hovered on her end, then stopped. The diner filled with other families, their easy chatter a contrast to the knot in my chest. I paid the tab, stepping into the cooled air, the lake house a distant memory in the rear view. The roots of that exclusion ran deep. 8 years ago, I traded a steady accounting desk for freelance finance advising, drawn to the freedom of guiding clients through investments and retirement plans, one conversation at a time. It built slowly, from small accounts to more substantial ones, but family gatherings twisted it into something lesser. At our Miami home during one routine dinner, the table groaned under plates of grilled steaks and salads, while Rochelle launched into her latest triumph. She detailed sealing a high-profile contract for her firm, the kind that came with performance incentives and team shout-outs. Vivian leaned in, eyes lighting up as she praised the strategic moves, the way it positioned Rochelle for bigger roles. Harlan sat back, offering a quiet affirmation without diving deeper, his focus on the meal. Attention shifted my way inevitably. Vivian asked about my client load, her question carrying that familiar undertone, as if tallying wins against Rochelle's. I kept responses brief, mentioning steady growth without specifics on the portfolios I'd optimized or the returns I'd delivered. Rochelle jumped in, framing freelance as unpredictable, the sort of setup that lacked the security of her structured path with annual reviews and stock grants. Vivian agreed, suggesting I consider a corporate switch, perhaps leveraging Rochelle's connections for an entry point. I pushed back mildly, explaining the independence suited my style. But the conversation veered back to Rochelle's horizon, her upcoming projects and the network she cultivated. Harlan glanced over occasionally, but stayed on the sidelines, letting the dynamic play out. Such evenings repeated, each one chipping away. Another meal brought Rochelle's update on a promotion, complete with details of her expanded team and bonus structure. Vivian celebrated openly, toasting to ambition that paid off, while Harlan nodded along, his silence a neutral buffer. I held back on my own milestones, like securing certifications or landing clients with complex needs. Defending felt futile, the group's lens fixed on traditional climbs over my quieter builds. Then came the shift 6 months back. A headhunter reached out, impressed by my track record with high-value accounts. Interviews followed, intense sessions on market strategies and risk assessment. The offer landed quietly, a full-time executive spot at a major investment firm, overseeing a $500 million portfolio focused on growth funds. I kept it under wraps, wary of the family's pattern. No announcements at dinners, no shares in casual talks. It stayed mine, a private pivot from freelance to structured leadership, away from their judgments. Vivian continued her support for Rochelle during those months, highlighting her as the family's benchmark. Harlan remained the steady observer, rarely weighing in. The contrast sharpened. My hidden progress a counter to their assumptions. Freelance had taught resilience, navigating volatile markets and client trusts. Now, with the executive role, it evolved into something broader, but the family's view lingered unchanged, locked in old narratives. I reflected on those patterns often, how they shaped responses. The dinners built a wall, one I'd learned to scale alone. Those invisible threads wove through every milestone. When Rochelle announced her engagement a year back, the news hit social feeds before my phone. A staged shot of her ring under Miami sun, caption glowing with joy. I reached out later, but the response brushed it off as hectic times. No room for deep dives. The family thread for wedding details kicked off without me. Vivian coordinating colors and dates with aunts and cousins. I stumbled on it through a misfired message from Vivian, a screenshot of venue options meant for the group. When I mentioned the oversight, she fumbled. Explaining it spared me discomfort since I lacked the ring experience to weigh in on bridesmaid fits or vow drafts. Rochelle echoed that sentiment in passing calls, her choices landing on college pals and Shane's kin, sidelining me as the odd fit, more suited to quiet support than spotlight poses. The pattern held for smaller beats, too. Rochelle's promotion toast at a local spot drew the clan, Vivian toasting her rise while Harlan clapped steadily. My invites arrived last or not at all, Vivian later citing packed calendars as the reason. Single at 34 became the unspoken tag. Rochelle's jabs landing during holiday catch-ups, questioning timelines for settling down amid her own wedded glow. My friend Tasha Pruitt caught the drift early, our coffee meetups turning into strategy sessions. From college days, she'd seen the dynamics up close, advising against the role of perpetual backup. Why chase approval from folks who measure worth by rings and titles? She pressed during one rainy afternoon chat, stirring her latte. Boundaries aren't walls. They're filters, let them see what you choose to show. I nodded, but the pull lingered. The habit of smoothing edges for family peace. Tasha pushed harder, sharing her own cutoff from a sibling who thrived on comparisons. It freed space for real connections, she said. The kind built on mutual lift rather than one-up games. Rochelle's bridal shower planning ramped up next, the event at a waterfront cafe drawing Vivian's full energy. Invites went to her circle, the event's theme circling couple vibes that left single paths out. I learned through Shauna's casual update, the exclusion framed as thoughtful, avoiding awkward singles amid paired bliss. Tasha texted right after, urging a line in the sand. Don't shrink to fit their frame, expand yours. Her words stuck during quiet drives home, the Miami skyline blurring past, the mock single status sharpened in group texts. Rochelle's quips about clock ticking drawing Vivian's light laughs. Harlan's emojis neutral as ever. Another layer peeled during Rochelle's bachelorette escape, photos flooding feeds of beachside toasts with her chosen crew. Vivian commented hearts. Harlan liked without words. My absence went unnoted. The narrative of my life as observer solidified. Tasha met me for walks along the bay then, her pace matching mine as she dissected the erasure. Family doesn't mean automatic entry, it's earned through respect, not endurance. Set the bar, she insisted, or they'll keep lowering yours. The advice settled unevenly at first, clashing with years of accommodation, but cracks formed, the weight of sidelining heavier with each overlooked turn. Rochelle's pre-wedding brunch followed, a sunlit affair with mimosas and gift swaps. Vivian hosted, the menu tailored to paired palates. Shauna slipped me details later. The vibe one of coupled futures I navigated from afar. Tasha's follow-up call came that week, her tone firm. You've outgrown the shadows, step out. The single mocks faded in her view, reframed as strength, not shortfall. The weight of those oversights pressed in that moment. Standing there in the lot, the envelope exchanged. I balanced the urge to barge back in against the pull of simply driving off. The lake house thrummed with life. Guests from distant spots like Orlando cousins and Tampa uncles mingling over slices of pie. Their bonds a tapestry I'd unravel if the story of my absence took hold. Shauna would puzzle over the vacant spot later, her text probing for details, but the undercurrent would spread wider. Rochelle would frame it as my choice. The sister, too, buried in freelance routines to prioritize kin. Vivian might wave it off as a scheduling slip. Harlan opting for silence, as usual. The Florida Network neighborhood cookouts and annual beach days would catch the echo, solidifying me as the drifting piece, the one not quite locking into the frame. That outlier label had legs, rooted in sidelong looks at block parties and holiday spreads. Freelance paths and solo status already sparked quiet judgments, now fueled by this sharp cut. Local chatter would hum on, the sister lagging behind Rochelle's forward march, her successes casting longer shadows. The car's door clicked open, seat cool against my back as the engine turned over. Miami's roads stretched ahead, bridges arching over dark water. The decision settling like fog. Staying meant swallowing another round of their script, shrinking to fit the gaps they'd left, but leaving carved space. A break from the cycle where my effort stayed footnotes. Self-respect flickered then. Not as revenge, but as quiet claim. I'd poured into advising, shaping client futures without fanfare, and the executive shift waited in the wings, unshared. Their lens didn't deserve the reveal, not yet. Not on their terms. I tapped out a message to Vivian as the first bridge loomed. Not on the list tonight. Rochelle's call. Heading back. Her response blinked fast, a flurry of confusion layered with defense. Surely a glitch come anyway. No glitch. Clear enough. The phone went dark, screen reflecting passing lights. Lose the clan links. The Orlando crew's annual invites. Tampa uncle's fishing trips, they'd fade with the narrative Rochelle spun. The unreliable relative bowing out again. But those ties had thinned under their weight already. Conditional on alignment. Reputation in the community carried its own sting. Florida's close-knit pockets remembered slights, the single advisor sister versus the rising exec wife. Grocery line nods would cool. Barbecue invites dwindle. The story of my no-show Thanksgiving fueling the drift. Yet the cost felt lighter than the alternative, enduring another evening as backdrop. Rochelle's glow, the main event. Self-respect meant owning the exit, not begging entry. Tasha's words echoed faintly, filters over walls, but I shaped it my way a step back to stand taller. Traffic eased near my building, the lot empty under street lamps. Keys jangled as I unlocked the door. The quiet apartment a contrast to the house's buzz. I dropped onto the couch, the day's edge dulling in the dim light. The executive offer papers sat on the desk, untouched since arrival. 500 million under management, a leap from freelance ledgers. Sharing it now would flip scripts. But the timing soured under their exclusion. Vivian's follow-up text arrived, pleading for clarification. Rochelle says it's a misunderstanding turnaround. I let it sit unread. The misunderstanding was theirs. The pattern of measuring me short. Choosing self-respect closed that loop. The walk-away a line drawn without fanfare. Night deepened outside, the lake house a memory in the rear view. The decision held firm. The freedom in it sharper than loss. Morning light filtered through the blinds the next day. The executive role at the firm had solidified weeks earlier. A full-time anchor after years of freelance navigation, with responsibilities over a $500 million portfolio of balanced funds. It marked the pivot from solo advising to team leadership. Contracts signed in a midtown office overlooking Biscayne Bay. But the real anchor was the personal investment fund I'd nurtured. $2 million in diversified assets from client referrals and market plays. That fund was the envelope's core. The note outlining it as Rochelle's gift. A stake in growth she'd coveted for her and Shane's future. Instead, the attorney met me at a downtown cafe, papers ready for transfer. Director Rosa Valdez of the Women's Empowerment Shelter arrived promptly, her briefcase neat against the booth. As we reviewed the donation, her eyes widened at the valuation. "This $2 million fund will transform lives," Rosa said, outlining how proceeds would expand job placement programs for women rebuilding after setbacks. The tax write-off was secondary. The impact housing upgrades and skill workshops felt right. I signed off. The ink dry before lunch. The shelter's confirmation email went out that afternoon. A copy routed to Rochelle's address with a simple subject: "The gift has a new purpose." Her response hammered in: hours, 17 calls. Texts pleading reversal. Shane followed with 10, his messages circling business fallout. Vivian topped it at 23, her voicemails blending hurt with demands for a family sit-down. The meeting convened 3 days later at our Miami home. The living room packed with the full circle. Vivian paced the carpet, Harlan on the couch with coffee in hand. Rochelle stood central. The business card from the envelope clutched like evidence, her voice breaking as she read the title aloud. Executive at the firm, managing $500 million. How she asked the room, the word hanging heavy. Nadine Bates, our aunt from the Keys, cut in sharp. "And you kept her out of the party. The one handling portfolios like that, Vernon, her husband," chuckled low. "Startup backers spotting your sister and you sidelining her bold move." Shauna Maddox leaned forward. Phone in lap. "I saw the texts Meredith confirmed weeks ago. This was no glitch." Rochelle stammered, framing it as image protection. Shane's network too elite for freelance vibes. But the card flipped that. Guests verifying my role on the spot. 2 of them recalling my freelance input on their stakes. Vivian tried steering. She should have shared sooner we're blood. But Nadine shook her head. "Blood doesn't mean blind. You've benchmarked her low for years." The room fractured then. Voices overlapping, cousins siding with facts. Uncles probing the exclusion. Harlan called for calm, but his words dissolved in the pushback. Rochelle teared up, the card crumpling slightly. Tasha Pruitt texted midway. Her update blunt LinkedIn's lighting up. Someone from the party posted the card scan, tagging firm contacts. "Your name's trending in finance circles." The post caught fire. shares noting the executive's family snub at Thanksgiving. Rochelle's profile drew comments. Her marketing cred questioned beside my unshared assent. Opportunities dried a senior role she'd eyed at a tech agency pulled back. Citing alignment concerns, Shane faced the brunt in board calls. Investors citing the drama as red flags on judgment. 2 commitments for his next round withdrew, the funding gap widening to strain their savings. The family circle contracted too. Neighborhood waves turning cool. Holiday invites sparse. Vivian's social lunches thinned. Harlan's fishing buddies dropping hints about divided loyalties. 6 months on. The thrum built steady. The firm promoted me to oversee expanded funds. A corner office with bay views. Dating slipped in naturally. Dinners with a colleague whose quiet drive matched mine. Rochelle's letter arrived then. Envelope crisp in the mail slot. Her script-filled pages, admitting the blinds to my path, the insecurity driving her cuts. Therapy had unpacked it. She wrote. The patterns of comparison now clear. The fund's loss stung, but losing the bond cut deeper. No plea for return, just acknowledgement of the gap she'd widened. I read it twice. The words sincere in their regret. But the reply stayed short. Texted back, "What $2 million, outsider? I don't know you." No further exchange. Self-respect outlasted blood ties. The real family, those who valued the unseen grind. Cutting clean left room for growth unjudged. The lesson's simple worth isn't earned in spotlights, but claimed in shadows. The frenzy quieted with the first light. But the ripples began. The executive position had taken shape months prior. A seamless shift from freelance consultations to leading a $500 million portfolio at the firm, where daily briefs covered asset allocations and risk models. It was the culmination of quiet networking. Not fanfare, the role demanding focus over family spotlights. The envelope's note had spelled it out, the card detailing the title and the $2 million personal fund. Assets I'd amassed through savvy trades and client trusts, positioned as Rochelle's stake in stability, rather than handed over. The donation process moved swiftly. Director Rosa Valdez met me in a nondescript conference room downtown. Her folder open on the table. "This $2 million fund will anchor our initiatives," Rosa explained, sketching how sales would bolster emergency housing and career coaching for women navigating transitions. The paperwork flowed, signatures sealing the transfer to the shelter's account. The receipt landed in inboxes by midday. A duplicate forwarded to Rochelle with minimal note. The intended gift now supports those starting over. Her barrage renewed 17 voicemails laced with disbelief. Shane's 10 circling professional fallout. Vivian's 23 weaving concern with calls for reconciliation. Harlan's single message urged a talk. His tone measured. The gathering assembled 3 days on at the Miami house, air thick with unspoken tension. Vivian hovered near the kitchen island. Harlan settled in an armchair. Rochelle paced the area rug. The card from the envelope unfolded in her grip. Her recitation of the executive line drawing sharp intakes. Nadine Bates fixed her gaze. "And you barred her from the party." The woman steering $500 million, Vernon, leaned in, a dry laugh escaping. "Backers connecting dots on your sister while you play gatekeeper." That's a twist. Shauna Maddox scrolled her screen. Texts show she RSVP'd early. This was deliberate. Rochelle faltered, attributing it to curating the right vibe for Shane's circle. But the card's details unraveled that. Guests cross-checking my background mid-dinner. 3 recalling my freelance guidance on their holdings, Vivian interjected. "She held back the news we're family," Nadine countered. "Family sees beyond titles. You've undervalued her for ages." The exchange heated. Relatives dividing, cousins aligning on the snub. Uncles questioning the judgment. Harlan attempted mediation. His suggestions lost in the crossfire. Rochelle's composure cracked, the card folding under her fingers. Tasha Pruitt's message broke through LinkedIn's buzzing. A party attendee shared the card image, linking to firm announcements. Your profile's in the mix now. The share gained traction. Notes on the executive's family rift drawing industry eyes. Rochelle's feed filled with queries, her marketing pursuits shadowed by the optics. A lead for a director spot at a digital agency evaporated. The offer rescinded over perceived instability. Shane navigated urgent huddles, board notes flagging the episode as a liability. 3 pledges for his funding pullback followed. The shortfall forcing budget trims and delayed hires. The household fabric frayed further. Local interactions icing over grocery exchanges brief. Weekend gatherings skipped. Vivian's coffee circles shrank. Harlan's golf rounds met with sidelong mentions of rifts. 6 months later, momentum carried forward. The firm elevated my scope, a suite with bay vistas and a small team reporting in. Evenings opened to a graphic designer. Our shared hikes along the coast building without pressure. Rochelle's correspondence came by post, pages dense with reflection. Inks traced her therapy sessions. The comparisons she'd leaned on now dissected as shields. The fund's redirection paled against the relational void. She conceded. No bid for absolution, just recognition of the divide she'd deepened. The lines held truth. Regret unforced. My response stayed concise. Sent via text. What $2 million outsider, I don't know you. Contact ceased there. Self-respect eclipsed lineage. True kin those honoring the unpolished path. Severing fully cleared the path ahead. The core truth, plain value blooms in quiet resolve. Not forced fits.